I'm 42. Married for 11 years. 2 kids. A mortgage that feels like a third child. Until last year, I would have told you my life was boring in the safest way possible. My wife, Emily, and I met in our late 20s. We grew up together in that adult way: career stress, fertility scares, funerals, birthday parties where you're too tired to drink. Nothing dramatic. Nothing cinematic. Just life. I trusted her the way you trust gravity. I never questioned that she'd be there when I reached for her. Before everything broke, our biggest arguments were about dishes and screen time for the kids. I genuinely believed we were solid. Not perfect. Solid. If you'd asked me then if she was capable of cheating, I would have laughed. Not defensively. Honestly amused. She hated conflict. Hated lying. Or so I thought. This is hard to admit, but I was proud of our relationship. I liked telling people how long we'd been together. I liked believing we'd survived the hard parts. The first crack didn't feel like a crack at all. More like a coincidence. She came home one afternoon smiling in a way that didn't include me. Said she'd bumped into an old acquaintance from college while walking downtown. A former classmate of mine, actually. She said his name casually, like it meant nothing. I remember nodding, barely listening, already thinking about dinner. That moment replays in my head a lot now. Because that was the last day my life was still mine, even if I didn't know it yet. Looking back, the warning signs were subtle in the way landmines are subtle, only obvious once you're bleeding. After that chance meeting, she mentioned him again. Just in passing. Ran into him again. He works nearby now. Each time, it felt harmless. I didn't want to be the paranoid husband reading into nothing. She started guarding her phone more carefully. Not dramatically. Just small things, turning the screen away, stepping outside to take calls. I noticed, but I told myself I was projecting. Everyone online tells you not to be that guy. She was lighter somehow. More energy. New clothes. New perfume. She said she was trying to feel like herself again. I supported that. I encouraged it. That still makes me sick. He was someone I knew in college, but not a friend. We shared classes. Drank at the same parties. He always struck me as charming in that effortless way that made people orbit him. I hadn't thought about him in over a decade. When Emily talked about him, she never used his name much. Just him. Like he was already a secret, even before I knew there was one. Sometimes she'd laugh at texts and not explain why. Sometimes she'd be distant in bed, distracted, like her body was present but her mind had already left. I remember lying awake next to her one night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, is this what midlife looks like? I never once thought, she's cheating. That's the part one struggled with the most. How badly I wanted to believe everything was fine. The doubt didn't arrive all at once. It seeped in. One night she fell asleep with her phone unlocked on the nightstand. That almost never happened. I didn't touch it at first. I stared at it like it was radioactive. I hated myself for even considering it. Then it buzzed. A message preview lit up the screen. Just 3 words. Miss you already? My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Family. Work. Some context I didn't have. I picked up the phone. I wish I could say I stopped there. I didn't. The thread was long. Months long. Inside jokes, photos, plans. Complaints about me. About our marriage. About how hard it was to sneak around. There were hearts. There were memories. There were references to hotels. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, shaking so hard the mattress creaked and woke her up. She looked at me, confused, then saw her phone in my hand. Her face collapsed in on itself. What is this? I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. She didn't answer right away. That silence was louder than any confession. Finally, she whispered, "It's not what you think." That's when I knew it was exactly what I thought. I don't remember standing up, but suddenly I was pacing the room like a caged animal. "How long?" I asked. Over and over. Like the answer might change. She cried. Real tears. Shaking. She kept saying my name, like it was a lifeline. She said it started after they ran into each other. Coffee turned into lunches. Lunches turned into talking. Talking turned into something she didn't plan. I asked again. Louder. 1 year, she said. A year. While we planned vacations. While we hosted birthday parties. While she kissed me goodbye every morning. A full year of lies stacked neatly on top of our life. I remember laughing. Not because it was funny. Because my brain short-circuited. I actually sat down on the floor and laughed until my chest hurt. She tried to explain. Said she felt invisible. Said he saw her. Said it was never supposed to hurt me. I asked if she loved him. She hesitated. That hesitation broke something in me I don't think will ever heal. The next few days blur together in my memory like a bad dream you can't wake up from. I didn't tell anyone at first. I walked around like a ghost, functioning on autopilot. Took the kids to school. Went to work. Answered emails. Smiled at people who had no idea my life had just detonated. Inside, I was screaming. Every memory felt contaminated. Every "I love you" she'd ever said replayed with an asterisk. I couldn't stop imagining them together. Their hands. Their laughter. The version of her that apparently belonged to him. She begged me not to leave. Promised it was over. Swore she'd block him, quit her job if she had to, go to therapy. I didn't know what I wanted. I still loved her. That was the worst part. Love doesn't just turn off because it's inconvenient. At night, I lay awake replaying conversations, searching for the moment I should have known. I hated him. I hated her. I hated myself most of all. I kept thinking, if I'd been better, would this have happened? I know that's not logical. But logic has no power when your heart's been gutted. The confrontation with him came later, and it was uglier than I imagined. I asked for his number. She resisted at first. That told me everything I needed to know about how over it really was. When I called, he answered like he didn't recognize the number. When I told him who I was, there was a pause. A long one. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said. That was his opening line. I asked him if he knew she was married. Yes. If he knew she had kids. Yes. If he ever thought about me. Silence. That silence felt like confirmation that I'd been reduced to an obstacle. A background character in my own life. He apologized. Not to me, really. To the situation. To the inconvenience of being caught. When I hung up, I felt empty. Not relieved. Not vindicated. Just hollow. Emily watched me the whole time, crying quietly. I wanted her to be angry at him. Furious. But she wasn't. She looked conflicted. That hurt more than the affair itself. The weeks that followed were defined by arguments that went nowhere. She wanted to work on us. I wanted answers that didn't exist. Why him? Why lie so easily? How did you come home to me after being with him? Every answer felt rehearsed. Polished. Like she'd had a year to prepare them. She insisted it wasn't about me. That she'd been lost. That she needed something she couldn't explain. I told her I needed space. She cried harder. Said space felt like abandonment. I remember thinking how ironic that was. We tried sleeping in the same bed. That lasted 2 nights. I couldn't stand the smell of her hair. It reminded me of secrets. I moved to the couch. The kids asked questions. We gave them half-truths. Mom and Dad are working through something. That sentence tasted like ash. Therapy was supposed to help. Sometimes it did. Sometimes it just reopened wounds. Sitting in that room, listening to her describe her affair as a mistake, I felt like I was watching my own autopsy. The therapist asked me what I needed to heal. I didn't know how to answer. How do you articulate the need to feel safe in a world that's proven it won't protect you? Trust, once shattered, doesn't break cleanly. It splinters. Every moment after that is sharp. I started checking her phone again. I hated myself for it. I hated that she turned me into someone suspicious and small. She tried. I'll give her that. She was attentive, present, apologetic. But remorse doesn't erase memory. The impact on my mental health was slow and brutal. I stopped sleeping, lost weight, snapped at the kids for nothing, cried in the car like a teenager. Friends noticed. I made excuses. I wasn't ready to let the story exist outside my head. There's a special kind of shame in being betrayed. Like you failed the test you didn't know you were taking. I kept asking myself if staying made me weak. If leaving would destroy my kids. If love was worth this much pain. No one prepares you for how lonely marriage becomes after infidelity. You're together, but you're alone. Eventually, the truth settled in. Something fundamental was gone. Even on good days, I felt like I was pretending. Like we were actors playing a couple who used to love each other. She sensed it too. We talked about separation in careful, hushed tones. Like speaking louder might make it real. When we finally decided, there was no screaming. Just quiet resignation. We told the kids. That was the hardest part. Watching their faces change is something I'll carry forever. Living apart didn't bring the relief everyone tells you to expect. It wasn't freedom or peace. It was just quiet. An unnatural quiet that pressed on my ears. The house felt wrong immediately. Too clean. Too empty. I'd walk into rooms and instinctively look for her, on the couch, in the kitchen, folding laundry while half watching some show we both pretended not to like. Then I'd remember. Over and over again. Like my brain refused to update. I slept terribly at first. Not because I missed her body, but because I missed the idea that someone else was there. The illusion of safety. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. convinced I'd heard a noise, heart racing, realizing I was truly alone now. Emily and I started co-parenting logistics almost immediately. Calendars. Drop-offs. School events. We were efficient in the way people are when emotions are too dangerous to touch. Polite. Careful. Strangers wearing familiar faces. Sometimes she'd linger during kid exchanges, like she wanted to say something important. Sometimes I did too. But neither of us ever crossed that line. Whatever words existed there were already too late. The strangest part was noticing moments when I felt lighter. Not happy, just less tense. Like my body had stopped bracing for impact. That realization came with guilt. Because what does it say when distance hurts less than closeness ever did? I still think about him more than I'd like to admit. Not obsessively, not with the fire I felt in the beginning, but he shows up in my thoughts like an unresolved equation. I replay old memories from college, searching for clues. Did he look at her back then? Did I miss something even earlier than I thought? I know it's pointless, but my mind keeps trying to build a timeline where this makes sense. What shocks me now isn't the betrayal itself, it's how ordinary it all was. No grand romance. No dramatic escape. Just lunches, texts, hotels, and lies folded neatly into everyday life. That banality makes it worse somehow. I never confronted him again. Never sent the angry messages I drafted and deleted 100 times. I realized nothing he could say would give me back what I lost. As far as I know, they're not together anymore. Or maybe they are. I don't ask. I don't check. Curiosity feels like self-harm now. There was a point where I imagined running into him on the street, the same way she claimed she had. I used to rehearse what I'd say. Now, I hope it never happens. I don't want him to see the version of me that exists because of what he helped break. Some people move on by understanding everything. I'm learning to move on by letting things stay unanswered. Dating again feels like trying to use a muscle that atrophied without me noticing. Friends encouraged it early. You deserve happiness. Not everyone is like her. They meant well. But they didn't understand how deeply my internal wiring had changed. I downloaded apps. Deleted them. Re-downloaded them. Went on a few dates with genuinely kind women and felt absolutely nothing. Or worse, I felt suspicious of their kindness. If someone took too long to reply, my chest tightened. If they laughed at their phone, my mind spiraled. I hated how quickly my thoughts went dark. I started asking myself uncomfortable questions. Was I broken now? Permanently damaged goods? Or was this just the cost of loving someone fully and losing them badly? Therapy helped slowly. Not by fixing me, but by reminding me that distrust isn't a character flaw, it's a wound. And wounds take time. Some nights I miss intimacy. Not sex. Intimacy. Being known. Being chosen without question. Other nights I enjoy the solitude more than I thought possible. No guessing. No monitoring emotional weather. Just quiet. I don't know what kind of partner I'll be in the future. But I know I refuse to ignore my instincts ever again. People love clean lessons. Simple takeaways. This story doesn't offer that. There's no neat moral where the villain gets punished and the good guy gets rewarded. There's just aftermath. Love, I've learned, isn't protection. Time together isn't armor. Shared history doesn't guarantee shared values. I used to believe loyalty was automatic once you crossed certain milestones. Marriage. Kids. Years invested. Now I know loyalty is a daily choice, not a permanent state. I also learned how dangerous silence can be. How unmet needs don't disappear. They rot quietly until someone else notices them. That doesn't excuse what she did. It never will. But it does complicate the story in ways I wasn't prepared for. I don't see relationships the same way anymore. I don't idealize them. But I don't dismiss them either. Maybe the lesson is this: pay attention. To distance. To yourself. To the moments you explain away because facing them feels scarier than ignoring them. I don't hate her. That still surprises me when I say it out loud. Hate would be easier. Cleaner. It would give me somewhere to put all this pain. But what I feel is heavier than hate. It's grief. For the life I thought I had. For the man I was before I learned how easily everything could collapse. I hate the choices. I hate the lies. I hate the version of me that begged for honesty from someone who'd already proven they couldn't give it. But I also recognize that carrying bitterness forever would mean letting the betrayal keep winning. I'm still here. Still raising my kids. Still rebuilding routines and a sense of self that isn't defined by being someone's husband. Some days I feel strong. Some days I feel like a fraud pretending I'm okay. Both can be true. If there's one thing I'd say to anyone reading this who feels that quiet dread in their relationship, the feeling something's off but you're afraid to name it, listen to it. Don't gaslight yourself into comfort. The truth may shatter your world. But it also gives you the chance to build a new one that's actually real.